See, Fauci is a political animal. The most highly paid employee in the entire federal government, which is remarkable. I know, federal government's big. He was propaganda in a lab coat. He was a tiny little tyrant doing what the collective apparatus wanted him to. And we all suffered as a result of it.
One thing I forgot to ask you about the Twitter files.
Sure.
Is we heard from Musk time and time again about Fauci, and when they dropped the Fauci files, and now that's gone. That's not going to happen. In fact, he even said we need to move away from the Twitter files. Why do you think the Fauci stuff never came out and probably never will come out?
Fauci is protected because he was the point man for really the biggest government fraud and abuse of our lifetime. And he understood. See, Fauci is a political animal. He was before he retired, the most highly paid employee in the entire federal government, which is remarkable. I know, federal government's big. There's a lot of people in the federal government. Highest paid federal government employee, had lasted in his role for decades and decades. And he decided that the way, I think that he became a true megalomaniac. I think that he was overcome with narcissism, and that at his stage in life, he became this figure who was elevated by some really sad, but millions of them, sad leftists into being almost like a deity. I think he started to believe it himself a little bit. I think that he disconnected from obvious reality and started to think that hero worship was rooted in the fact that he really was somebody who should be worshipped. And he also was critical to the Democrat plan of unseating Donald Trump and taking over the White House and taking power. He mobilized as a political operative for them. So up to this point, he has been, the scene of The Departed where he's like, that's a guy you can't touch, he's a made guy, you can't touch him. He was a made guy. Fauci was someone that you couldn't get any kind of a political hit on. And I think what he did is evil. I don't think that it was beyond his knowledge that he was advocating for policies that were destructive economically, psychologically abusive. I think a lot of people died of drug overdoses, and I think a lot of people drank themselves to death. I think a lot of marriages were ruined. I think a lot of children were abused because Fauci was a coward who told Democrats who are hysterical what they wanted to hear, which was, if you just listen to me, you'll be safe and you're a good person. There was a moral element to this too, we have to remember. If you got COVID, there was a period of time where people would say, well, how'd you get it? As if it's like, what do you mean? Breathing air, being around human beings. That was a part of the madness. Why didn't Elon, or why hasn't the Fauci files really come out? I'll say one thing. My guess is that Fauci is, he understands he's subject to FOIA. So my sense is that he's probably not super sloppy with what he would put down in the first place. That's on the finding the most positive interpretation of it possible. I think it's also, and this is a bigger piece of it, Elon's taken on a lot with what he's doing with Twitter and is getting immense pressure. Mm-hmm. This is like a break in the dam of the collectivist Democrat, control. This is, you finally have, we can't even begin to, I think, understand how much personal and professional pressure he comes under as a result of this. And I think maybe he just decided that this isn't necessarily, either it just wasn't that interesting, which is possible. Maybe they didn't have anything that good on Fauci specifically. I think we already kind of know. Or he just decided that to keep Twitter alive, not going to go full on the Fauci thing. So that's my assessment. I know people can pick and choose what they think is right or wrong about that. That's how I see it.
Yeah, and I would love to see it.
I would love to see it. I think I was probably, I despise Fauci more and sooner than almost anyone else that I know in the entirety of American media because I saw exactly who this guy was. All I had to know was the flip on the mask issue. Goes from it's not a big deal, doesn't really work very well, don't waste your time, to this is essential. If you don't do it, you're a bad person.
Yeah.
It was in lockstep with the psychology and the political needs of the Democrat left. That's all it was. He became a front man. He was propaganda in a lab coat. He was a tiny little tyrant doing what the collective apparatus wanted him to, and we all suffered as a result of it. And I think he's truly shameful. I think what he did is monstrous, and I think the people who went along with it have a lot of soul searching to do. And they were hateful, and their conduct was shameful, and the forced vaccine mandates was a disgrace, and the mask mandates on planes and in restaurants was appalling and pointless, by the way. But to me, it still goes back to, it feels like a dry run for totalitarian control in this country when the next crisis comes. I don't know, like locking up a presidential candidate in an election cycle.
Let's take a break. No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.